Today's topic is going to be the reason you can't break the cycle. And low-key, shout out to my boy George for making a video that inspired me to make this one. You know who you are if you're watching this. I'll start with the story. Every single day recently, I've been waking up with these overwhelming urges to do stupid shit that I've cut out in the past, that I've been trying to cut out for months, years now. Whether it be the desire to smoke weed, whether it be the desire to play video games, whether it be the desire to consume pornography. When you've been an addict for so long, the things that you would like to do don't necessarily go away. The only thing that really changes that allows you to combat this problem is how you approach the problem mentally. So when I feel these urges, I recognize that there's a very deep concentration of energy in one part of my body. So I take deep breaths for a few minutes, maybe even like 5-10 breaths. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. I let that energy dissipate, and then I try and project it into things that matter, like sending out job applications, like going to the gym, like driving a car and getting better at that so I could go on nature hikes and go visit the darkest place in America so I could see stars for the first time. Things like that. Now I want you to realize that you are not the urge. The urge is simply a product of the ego. The ego is trying to make you feel safe because that's all it knows. It doesn't know conscientiously risk management, probabilities, any of that stuff. It just understands win or lose. So you must rewire your brain and convince it. Convince. Now, this is hard. I still haven't done it myself fully. But you have to convince yourself and not speak, not say words that you don't mean, but genuinely understand that you are safe where you are. Maybe not in the narcissistic household, but you are safe. In your own space, when you are by yourself, when you're in nature, you are safe. And the only way to really do this is to really be critical of your self-dialogue and have a true and honest conversation with yourself. Literally hundreds of times. You're going to have to do this hundreds of times to start changing that internal dialogue in your head so that you could stop being so emotional, so that you could think clearly. Connecting with nature is a great way to get into this mindset. Mindset, conversation, whatever you want to call it. Another thing that may help is emotionally corrective experiences. Now, this can be hard because you need another human being for this. And not all human beings are going to be very warm and kind. I'm talking like, in order to feel better about yourself, you can't really hug yourself, right? You need another individual to hug you. But if you could tap into that sort of reserve, it'll make you feel a lot better. Paired with trying to change your internal dialogue, you will actually make progress very fast, and you will learn so much in just a few weeks' time. Like, your mind will be blown. You'll have this newfound perspective and new will to exist. But for the other method, when it comes to self-dialogue, we all have two voices in our head. Our true self, which comes up when, let's say, you're afraid of getting rejected. Your true self comes up when you want to go and approach a person despite getting rejected. And there's the ego. One is pure and wants what's best for you, doesn't care about how painful the process is going to be. And the other is corrupt and wants to take the path of least resistance and wants to make you feel safe in the moment 100% of the time. Because the ego does not understand the nuances that come with probability and risk. It only understands winning, which is success, and losing, which is death. And it's trying to protect you at all costs from death, even if you're not going to die from the situation. The ego is so terrified of death that it will literally sabotage you into an earlier death just to feel safe in the moment. That makes no sense, but this is how our mind works. The craziest thing I've noticed is when I'm doing crazy shit like climbing a tall tree or doing something risky and dangerous, like just fucking beelining across the street. Like, I could potentially get hit by a car, like, while I'm running in New York City. The fear of death, literally, it just doesn't cross my mind. Yet, when I contemplate quitting addictions and leaving behind the life that I've known is worse for me for decades, my fear and anxiety go through the fucking roof. If there was a chart, it would go past the chart. It spikes 100%, 100 times compared to doing shit that is literally death-defying. So, let's say you tried to quit your drug of choice. A few days go by, but each day you see your brain trying to get you to cave in. And you notice your brain trying to play tricks on you, trying to convince you to go back to your old ways. These tricks are a tool of the ego, and they're going to leave you worse off if you listen to it. What I learned recently is you cannot even trust your own mind. Perhaps your mind was adaptive back in the day in the narcissistic household, perhaps never taking any risk, perhaps never going out and getting experiences was a positive thing in your household because it limited your mother's control over you. It limited how much bullshit she's going to throw at you. Because let's say if you go to a sleepover with your friend and you tell her that you're going to the sleepover, hell, when you come back the next day, you're going to feel like shit. She's going to make you feel like shit. Why? Because she's not in control. But that is an easy way to live a really shit life. So the ego is a defense mechanism that tries to protect you from future failures, and it's been informed by past failures. And that has a lot to do with your upbringing. For some of us, unfortunately, our parents fucked us up, and now we do things like just not take any risks at all. Now we do things like find it really fucking hard to trust people. However, it's often the case that what worked when we were younger, what was adaptive, what helped us survive, has actually become so harmful and so negatively reinforced in the real world that we feel that we're suffering and we are actually fucking miserable. Now, notice when you make any sort of progress in something that is this debilitatingly anxiety-inducing and fear-inducing. There's a really interesting relationship between leveling up in the real world and confidence when it comes to the ego. When you make progress, when you quit weed for 3 days, not so much for me because I've kind of managed to get past this barrier, but oh man, for years, trying to quit weed for one single day made me feel worse, 10 times worse, than sitting in the same pigsty that I have been sitting in for years. Your confidence, your motivation to improve goes down as you genuinely make progress. You have to be careful for your mind creating these cognitive distortions because it's going to try and trick you and keep you in the same place because it doesn't know nuances. It doesn't know the details. It doesn't know that you're actually going to die. All it understands is we need these chemicals to function optimally. But could there be a case where the world is actually a better place in our mind without these chemicals somehow? When you level up, your brain notices the differences going on inside of you. And it's going to try and keep you in homeostasis because change equals death for the ego. It's unconsciously trying to protect you from past dangers. These dangers have been instilled in you from a very young age, probably through your parents, probably through your siblings. Like, I want you to genuinely think, the things you are most insecure about, are those insecurities something that came from within? Or are those insecurities something that got hammered in hundreds of times by your mother, by your brother? Are you really that lacking in confidence in your ability to find employment and add value to an organization? Or is that just something your brother has told you every single day for whatever fucking reason? Because he has these narcissistic tendencies and in order for you to understand something, you gotta hammer it in for fucking decades and just make people feel like shit. But there comes a time, if you end up moving out, or you end up living in your own apartment, or you end up distancing yourself somehow, there comes a time where those past dangers just aren't relevant anymore. And now we're just left with the diluted pleasure and the consequences of our degenerative actions. Those coping habits become destructive and become maladaptive. Your brain tells you things like, when you're leveling up, when you're making significant progress that I'm genuinely proud of you for, that it's hard to tell yourself you're proud of you for in the moment because those emotions are so fucking ramped up, because your ego is just so hypervigilant and hyperactive. Your ego's going to tell you things like, it's not good enough. There's an entire mountain to climb in front of us. And it'll create these sort of cognitive dissonance. And it fools you by draining your motivation and confidence. And then it achieves the desired result through little resistance. Notice your confidence on day 2 or day 3 of trying to quit alcohol. Notice your confidence on day 2 of trying to quit pornography or weed, whatever it is for you. Do you feel better that you're doing and genuinely improving your life, or do you feel worse? And the funny thing is, although you've made more progress than you've ever made by simply trying, you feel more hopeless than when you were using. This is cognitive dissonance. Our brain is fucked. I don't know how to describe it, but the yogis have understood this through constant self-awareness and trying to understand what it is that the brain is actually doing at all points in time. You're going to have those good days where you feel motivated, and then you're going to have follow-up days where your motivation sinks below baseline. But you will get back to baseline. The brain convinces you to go back because it doesn't consciously understand the danger. Your ego is very primitive. The top layer of your brain that's responsible for consciousness, that's what's able to differentiate from true danger and like genuine death. So we can use the conscious layer of our brain to inform that we are safe. Through experiences with other people, such as getting hugs and constantly having this internal dialogue. When you're hyper anxious, try to breathe a few times and tell yourself that you are safe. Because it's your nervous system that is hyperactivated as a result of your ego. It's not necessarily your brain knows what it's doing. It's simply just a jerk response to potential death. Unfortunately, your brain can't feel the benefits of your actions until you gain positive reinforcement is really fucking important. Until you gain that from the world around you telling you that you're on the right path, you're probably going to have a lot of self-doubt, and you're not going to have too much confidence or believe in yourself. But you have to trust in the process, and you have to understand the actions that you're taking now, today. If you can compound that over even 1 year, man, you will break down in tears at how much progress you made. You will break down in tears at the difference in human that you are. You could literally go from shitting on people on the internet because your life is fucking trash and miserable and playing video games 12 hours a day to literally inspiring and trying to help other people. There's a lot more power in that process, even though the process is painful as fuck. And it's a lot easier to just sit at home and be the same person every single day. But once you get just one positive outcome to latch onto, oh man, you never want to stop doing what you're doing to live a better life. And as long as you have those positive outcomes coming at you, it's just going to compound and you're going to become fucking addicted to positive things. I've noticed this with my physique in the gym. I've noticed this with interacting with other humans. I've noticed this with trying to share this type of whatever you want to call it, wisdom, this energy. The first few months are always going to be such a fucking struggle to get up off your ass and build the habit. But once you notice that physical change within yourself, once you feel healthier, once you notice that internal dialogue changing, once instead of telling yourself to hurt yourself, you actually start to be compassionate. And you literally tell yourself, like, it's okay to have these thoughts. I don't control these thoughts. But what I do control is how I respond and the actions I take despite experiencing this type of shit. There are two sides to this. You can hurt yourself in a negative way, self-harm, or you can hurt yourself in a positive way by breaking yourself down and building yourself back up through really fucking difficult tasks. Maybe for you it's running 6 miles. Maybe for you it's fucking having an entire week of just insanely difficult training in the gym. Maybe it's humbling yourself through literally going out in nature and realizing that, oh shit, there's actually a lot more in this world that can kill me that aren't actually my thoughts. Once you come across this sort of positive process, you will start to gain confidence. You will allow yourself to form more friendships and relationships that are really healthy, that aren't fucking narcissistic abuse. You will come across people who are narcissistically abusive and will use you because they themselves don't know who they are. They themselves are living in fear and greed. Don't let those bad eggs ruin your perception and your experience of life, because there's a lot more great stuff out there than your narcissistic mother. There's a lot more great stuff than your shitty narcissistic ex. It's okay at the end of the day. You did not die, and you will learn from these experiences. And as a result, you will actually be a lot better of a person. You will be much more compassionate. Your ability to influence and help people and live a good life is going to go through the fucking roof compared to the average normal person who's judging you. Why? Because they're not doing shit with their lives. It's so easy to sit here and place blame on you. Look at your life. Look at your financial state. Look at your, whatever it is. Those people, they mask what would be a personality or their soul through hyperfixating on your problems, through making you feel bad, through making you doubt yourself. But you're totally fine the way you are, believe it or not. Even though things might be fucked up, you're worthy. You're worthy of all of this stuff. You're worthy of love. You're worthy of providing value. You're worthy of having purpose. You're worthy of friendship and relationships. Once you recognize this, you finally allow yourself to be a normal human. And when you're a normal, neurotypical brained human, or at least trying to, your life isn't run by emotions and impulses anymore. And that's when you can use your addiction, your addictive personality, your addictive genetics, and turn that into a positive thing through positive processes. In my case, I found out from a young age, I knew I was very passionate about fitness. I knew I was very passionate about sports, competitiveness, playing games, shit like that. And now I have simply applied that to something that can break me down and build me back up. And oh fucking man, I never want to stop. And the fruits of that labor have changed the way I look at the world entirely. Lastly, I'll leave you with a few things. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take years. Now, that doesn't sound very motivating from a YouTube video, but the reality is, I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm not going to give you these 7 things you can do to make your life better in 6 minutes. The reality is, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of patience with yourself, being okay with making mistakes and moving on from them. It's going to take a lot of self-compassion. But most importantly, I would say you need to stop listening to that voice in your head that has kept you stuck. You know what I'm talking about. You know that voice. And you need to start listening to your true self. The true self that has been buried so fucking deep down for so long, just so you can cope with your shitty upbringing. That is you. That is the value you can provide to this world. That is what people are attracted to. When your ego's in control, you're operating from emotions, things that are going to influence you to make irrational decisions. Fear and shame can motivate you to do some really stupid shit. Might even motivate you to literally end it all. How can that be truth? Fear, shame, greed cannot be truth. Allow your true self, even if it's just for 5 minutes, through things like meditation, through spending time in nature. Just allow your true self to be in control and just notice the difference in the person that you are. And then once you've slowed your mind down enough and you're starting to think creatively, you're no longer in your head, you're no longer contemplating past negative interactions, you're no longer emotional as hell. Simply try to take one action today. Whatever your goal is, if you want to read a book, read Can't Hurt Me for just 1 page. If you want to learn how to read, just read 1 page. If you want to improve your fitness, do 1 push-up. Do 1/8 of a mile. Do 1/4. Whatever you can handle. Say hi to 1 person on the street and just think nothing of it. Try to cut out the bad things for just 1 day. Maybe even a few hours if you can. Just try to resist those internal impulses, those urges, that emotion that has controlled you for so long. And I'm here to tell you, if you relapse, it's okay. You're not a bad person. Your shame, your fear of the future is going to convince you for a brief moment, because the shame is so powerful, that you're a piece of shit. But it's okay, man. We're all human. We all make mistakes at the end of the day. All we can do is strive to become better. And as long as we're doing more than we were doing yesterday, that's what matters. That's how you slowly compound to a real life that our parents didn't fucking show us. But just keep trying to make it 1 more day when you feel like your true self is just dying for this change. If you fail, that's okay. Spend some time in the failure, process that emotion, come back and try again. One thing that's really helped me is if you spend time in nature by yourself, in order to reach this sort of level of introspection, I would recommend doing this by yourself for the most part. Spend time away from things that tug at your heartstrings, especially the emotional people in your life. You'll be able to think a lot more clearly, and your true self will be in control. And at this point, you may come to some crazy revelation. You may notice some things about yourself you didn't even know existed. You may notice things externally about the universe that you didn't really contemplate in the past. Basically, I was sitting in a tree, meditating for like half an hour or something, just chilling, literally touching grass, touching bark. After running for like an hour, And my mind was so clear, my mind was so slowed down that none of that negative emotion that just overwhelms me every single day and just distracts the fuck out of me, or at least tries to, none of that was present. The only thing that mattered and that I was doing was understanding, coming to understandings. By spending time in nature, by literally just going rogue for a few hours. Maybe you go to the park, maybe you go to the nature trail and you hike for like 4 hours. You will slow down your mind, and once your mind is in that state, you can think clearly. You can think from who you genuinely are. And the revelation that I had in that tree is, holy shit, I'm actually 100 times more afraid of where I will be in the future, of what people think of me, of things that I have zero control over, than literally dying, which made no sense to me. Because isn't the ego trying to protect you from death? But when death, there's a greater potential for it, your ego doesn't spike up in this super fearful and anxious way. Isn't that really, really weird? When you're about to die, you are fully present. When you are in dangerous situations, you're not thinking about the worst outcome. You're not thinking about the bad shit that can happen. You're simply focused on the moment. But when we have these sorts of traumas like fear of abandonment and shit, why is it that something positive can happen and that's all your brain thinks about is that fear circuitry of, oh shit, I'm gonna die. This part of me is gonna die because it's happened in the past. So I'm gonna prepare myself for it. The mind can play tricks on you. It's hard to wrap my head around how engaged my fear circuitry gets when it comes to abstract things that just completely out of my control. How much one small potential failure can trigger me versus the ultimate failure, which would literally be dying. And the last thing I'll leave you guys with is beautiful energy attracts beautiful energy. And although some of you, including myself sometimes, oftentimes, I'm not gonna fucking lie, although we're not in the greatest place right now, one of the most powerfully motivating and just energetically attractive things I've experienced recently is having tried to be there for someone who was down bad, and to hear that the person who was down bad is finally finding solace and doing better and is able to actually pass on those words of encouragement, that compassion, that love. It blows my mind. Seeing people who are in a worse position than me literally doing better than me motivates the fuck out of me. That, holy shit. And if you're watching this video, okay, I'm not going to shout you out, but you know who you are if you're watching this video. I never thought I would learn this from you, but you are incredible. There's nothing more deeply satisfying and motivating than seeing people outgrow you and be able to encourage you to be even better than you were. And you can't find that if you live in fear. You will never experience that if you live in fear, if you're controlled by your emotions. And the very last thing I will say is there are two yous, okay? Let's just reiterate. The ego that's trying to protect your inner child that creates cognitive dissonance just so it can stay safe in the moment. And your true self. The person you know that you are destined to be. The person God created you to be. That's all I got for you. Thank you for listening. I love you.